Everybody shut up. We're live. People can see and hear us now. Hi, everybody. Well,
Hi.
welcome to the monthly live stream. I'm here with a bunch of my patrons and channel members, and we're I was just saying we're going to do what we usually do and talk over each other for an hour. But before we get to that part, our friend and regular Some Random Geek has something that you wanted to start off with. So
Right.
the floor is yours, my friend.
So this is June is like Pride Month as well, and this is like 61st anniversary of the Stonewall Inn riots that happened in 1969, June 28th as well too. The start of the first Pride. So remember, the first Pride was a motherfucking riot and against the cops too. I want to add that no cops at Pride, but also we had Juneteenth, which was like the commemoration of like June 19th, 1865, when like Union soldiers traveled to Gallatin, Texas, to finally enforce the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing the last bastion of slavery that happened. Now, so we think like, okay, June 19th and Pride, is there a connection there? Well, there's always a tangential connection because yes, our black and brown people are queer too. Let's remember that. I don't understand the whole blue over the like, let's add the black and brown like lines to the pride flag. Yes, let's do that. Let's do that. But some people don't like that. And yes, racism in queer spaces, as others have like talked about. In fact, there was an old fluid voice from my friend Indigenous Heretic was on to talk about that. And yeah, sorry. Sorry. Yes, queer spaces can be very white. But how many of you know of this like historical person, William Dorsey Swan?
I don't think I've heard of
that. Well, here is the Nation's article of like the first ever, I'll show it in our Zoom call and in the live chat. Supposedly the first ever drag queen, because William Dorsey Swan was known to his friends as the Queen. So, William Dorsey Swan was born in 1860 in slavery, and faced like endured slavery, civil war, racism, police surveillance, and torture behind bars, and many injustices, and is basically known as the very first ever drag queen. A former slave was the first ever drag queen, and he likes to hosted drag queen and balls around Washington D.C. It became like a known thing, and of course the police cracked down as they usually do. He was back like convicted and sentenced 10 months in jail on false charges for keeping a disorderly house. Basically, the euphemism at the time for running a brothel. And he was denied pardon by President Grover Cleveland as well for holding a drag ball. Oh, so now the Nation's article doesn't go into detail. And don't worry, I'm not going to sit here and read the full like article itself. If you want to read the full article itself, here's a web archive link of it, so that you don't have to like pay the Nation for like a little bit to like read it as well too. But if your thing is like, how come I haven't heard of William Dorsey Swan? Is there a book about him? Well, sadly, Dana Nicole's not here to join us, but like the author of that Nation article, Channon is the where's your Channon Joseph. Actually, they wrote a book, and that's what he talked about in this article as well too. House of Swan, where slaves become queens. So there you go. That's all I wanted to like share. The very first ever drag queen, a former slave.
That's really cool. It's amazing how like every time you look into the history of like, you know, queer culture and especially like queer protest culture and, you know, activism, like it always goes back so much further than like than the people who are against it would have you believe. Like there's like, I mean, I know Trump always speaks very, very imprecisely. But I mean, he gave a speech the other day where he was talking about trans people, and he was like, they just made up this whole trans thing a few years ago. And I'm like, all right, I mean, I know you speak imprecisely, but that's way like there's an idea that people have. And it's like they don't even their own memories don't work. Like they don't remember trans issues existing as like a major.
They choose to forget it.
Does the name Christine Jorgensen strike
well, there's that.
Note?
Yeah, there's that from like the 50s.
There are people long before her.
Yeah, all throughout history.
Hell, the Mancini Society. The Mancini Society. There was like a French soldier in like the 1700s that was like a cross-dresser as well too. And
Yeah.
People
traditions
have
that
been cross-dressing forever. The Romans did it, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. There's nothing new about it. There's nothing revolutionary about it. There's nothing, like nobody's trying to hijack the culture, and it's like, no, this is part of humanity. This is part of how all of us have always been, and
But communities don't exist until we start oppressing them. Like targeted oppression.
Communities it's more like communities don't exist until I start noticing them. And then I'm like,
technically, in the United States, they can track it from
one.
the 1840s at the Mississippi River, and as you move west, anti-cross-dressing laws get applied to the books later and later, implying that the community was getting pushed further out west that whole time.
Yeah. I mean, it's like right-wing people act toward marginalized groups, especially like LGBTQ-oriented groups. They act. It's like the way I think of like more recent celebrities, because there's like I don't pay as close attention to like youth culture and stuff as I used to when I was a youth. So like I'll hear about someone. Yeah, exactly. So I'll hear about someone on social media who I have like literally never heard of, but they're like the most popular person in the world. And I have no idea who they are, but that doesn't mean that they just popped up out of nowhere. They've probably been around and doing something for a while now because they've gotten this popular. It's just that I didn't notice them because I'm out of touch, Oh, I've heard of Taylor Swift, but I mean, I remember. No, I remember when Taylor Swift was making country records, but like there's other ones. As I've gotten older, it's like who the fuck is that?
I never heard of Mr. Beast, who has like over 100 million subscribers. I didn't hear him until he came to Fork Knife.
Oh, for YouTube celebrities, I'm terrible about it. Yeah, I had no idea who Mr. Beast was until like a year ago, and I was like, he's got how many million subscribers? Like I'm just completely disconnected from like
it helps. It's funny. It's
it
almost
helps.
to the point
It
where
helps a lot.
I'm genuinely surprised
Greece,
when somebody knows about
in
somebody
ancient
that
Greece,
I know
it was
about.
very common.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we know about the Spartans and the fact that the Spartans did marry, but the woman had her head shaved and she was sent with a toga, very basic toga, to sit in a darkened room where her husband would come and basically sort of carry her off and rape her, pretending that she was a man. She was not allowed to look like a woman. But in the other cities of ancient Greece, male-male relationships were very common. It was an older man and a younger boy, and the relationship was strictly controlled. The boy had to be older than 14, but younger than 18, because otherwise it looked like a homosexual clandestine relationship. It was supposed to be a mentoring thing. The older man would bring the boy up until he was about 18, at which point he would be sent out to do his own thing with his own young man. So the idea of this same-sex mentoring relationship is so old that you kind of look at it and go, you really got no idea, have you? You've got no clue that this has gone on for centuries, and you pretending that, oh, it's new and it's never happened before, and they told me isn't bad. Oh, fuck off and go away.
Yeah,
because it's one of the fundamentals of conservatism. I call them the box, right? There's a specific worldview. Anything outside of that worldview either is a perversion of what's in the box, or it's the void that will destroy us all, right? So you have to keep in the box. And if, for example, that history doesn't fit, no, of course it doesn't happen. It doesn't exist.
But I mean, like I said, until I did my doctorate in theology, I was really into what you might call the religiosity of Christianity. And I'd kind of followed it up until degree level. Jesus was God, Jesus was the Son of God. And then I did my doctorate, which is kind of looking at religion in the ancient world and its impact on other societies. And I had to kind of, as you say, think out of the box. I had to go, oh, it wasn't like this. It wasn't nice and sweet and everybody's, holding hands and skipping through the streets of Ephesus. It's more like bloody and awful, and we're going to force this on you and you're going to like it or go underground. And that was a really hard thing for me to do. And I remember doing it sort of early 30s, sort of going up to my 40s and thinking, this doesn't seem right. And this is when as I said with Steve, this is when I was kind of speaking with this Dr. Fox. And he's saying, but this was the norm. And I'm going, but it can't be the norm. There's nothing to say it's the norm. And he's going, and there's me going, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're a bastard teacher. And I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. I hate you.
Yeah, reality is reality, regardless of what you want to believe.
So it took me sort of 3 months of kind of going around the house, shouting at my mum, shouting at my now husband, going, these old bastards, they don't know what they're talking about. I know Christianity's the Bible. And my mum and as I said, my now husband going, Cara, you really need to go back to the old books, and you need to cite sources, and you need to read them. You can't go off on some half-cocked, sorry, I'd be deaf and dumb without my hands. You can't go off on some half-cocked idea that you know it because you've only got the Gospels and the letters and Revelation. So I had to sort of go back to him and say, yes, all right, I'll rewrite this bit and not in so much purple prose. And thank you very much, Dr. Fox. And I love you very much. And please give me my PhD.
Through gritted teeth.
Through gritted teeth, yeah. I love you very much. Give me
I love you very much. You're a great teacher.
You're a great lecturer. Give me my PhD now.
Yeah, get out of here. Lessons learned. You've had your hand up for a little bit.
Because something happened a couple of weeks ago, and if I start coughing, I apologize. I do have the flu, so there's that.
I've heard that excuse before.
I was watching. I stopped at the video where you were doing the worst father moments from war. And I was like, I've seen this before. I'm not going to do that. But the recommendations on the side is like, I'm a military geek. So it was like fighter planes here and a warship there. And then there was your face, Steve, smiling from the bed of a hospital, I think it was. And it was like, he's like, I'm glad that I had my vasectomy.
Oh, my vasectomy video. Yeah.
One was genuinely and truly warped.
Yes.
Which, it's not inherently bad. It was just like the weirdness of YouTube. I'm watching this.
Yeah, like a random, like, here's this one too.
Wait, what? And you're smiling. I mean, I guess, your experience, I'm not going to judge.
It was a wonderful experience.
There you go. Glad, otherwise be bad. But still, it was like, what?
Steve is looking at me, smiling from the hospital bed.
Yeah. Congratulations, I guess.
That's so weird, and it's weird because that's like a 2-year-old video now.
Yeah, but it's the weirdness of the algorithms, because if for example, there's so many things that, and I've been thinking about algorithm things, in that instead of the way we think of automation about taking things out, what in fact they're doing is putting even more steps between us and whatever it is that we want to do. Because, and this is a rough approximation that's supposed to work. It's 3-year-old video, so probably the algorithm says, oh, you've been watching videos about music of the 2000s, early stuff. So, okay, 10 to 5 years. You watch a lot of Steve stuff, right? But you're not watching something, Steve, right now. You've been watching something else. So we want a video that is around that era, which has Steve on it, but we're not going to put it on top because you've been watching some other stuff. So we're going to put it here, but it's fatherhood, I guess.
Sort of. Yeah.
Or avoiding it, like the plague, like, not for me. Because talking about bad father, somebody who shouldn't have had a father in the Star Trek show.
It's tortured, but it does kind of make sense.
Yeah.
When you walk
this
through
is
it
why
like
we
that.
sacrifice children to the algorithm.
Exactly. Exactly. Just sit there and watch.
So that's it. Yeah. No, I just wanted to say that because it was so funny. I was like,
that is a weird. Yeah.
Go ahead, Joe.
Okay.
There was a music channel that played at a fast food place I worked at, and most of the year it was just like Muzak versions of semi-current hits. But every time on holidays, they did a lot of like just music themed to that holiday that was in the public domain. And on Father's Day, they did it as well. But as you can imagine, there's not actually all that many public domain Father's songs.
Yeah.
There was like
I can't imagine there are.
that were clearly about daddies and not
Oh.
rough fathers that were
Interesting.
very funny in the context of the rest of the songs.
That's hilarious. That reminds me of that the Arrested Development episode where Jason Bateman's character and his daughter like sing, they doing karaoke and they do a duet on Afternoon Delight, and then it gets like really uncomfortable. And they're like, after it's over, they're like, that song's way dirtier than I remember it being. It's like, yeah, it's like super dirty.
Anyway, just remembering my story, which has nothing to do with
Oh yes, please.
LGBTQ. Yeah.
Yes.
Now, you all know that the Middle East is not, we don't live in tents and ride camels, or rather we do, but for sort of pleasure things. You know, you can ride a camel down at the beach, or you can go and see a camel.
Yes.
You do know that they're fairly civilized.
They have houses and buildings and all of that.
And houses and flats and air conditioning and cars and roads.
Yes,
Well,
I think the city
as
of
I said,
Ur.
my
would
dad
clue me
got a
in.
job in the climatological centre just outside Lake Havasu. I was about 13, 14, and my brother was 11. So we went to school around that area. Group of people who were, well, the kids were singularly dense, to put it mildly. And my brother, being a little bit of a shit, when we said we lived in the Middle East, we said, well, how did you get to school? And my brother, winding them up, and he did mean to wind them up. He says he swears he did. He said, oh, yeah, well, my dad took a camel to school to work and had to roll his charts up in leather skins every morning. My mum had to sweep out the tent every morning because we all lived in a circle of tents. And I said, yeah, and me and my brother took the donkey cart to school. And I'm looking at my brother while he's telling these group of kids this, and I'm thinking, they're gonna twig. They're gonna twig. They're gonna get that this is not real. And they're going, really? Really? So how did you get groceries? Did you have to send the donkey cart for them?
No.
I mean, did you all make your meals in a big cauldron in the middle? And there's my brother embellishing it. And there's me looking at him going, James, stop. They're not going to believe it. And the more he went up a level, the more they believed it. But the downside, because Dad got moved to Boston, and James tried it again. Only this time, they weren't having it. This time, when we went to Ellesmere College in Boston, and I was 16, 17 at the time, and they took one look at him and said, try that, pull the other one. We know they have flats and roads and cars and air conditioning. We know that medicine came from there and chess came from there. And we've heard of Averroes and Avicenna, and a chap called Ibn Zaid, who was the first, he wrote a 10-volume treatise on medicine, from treating hydrocephalus to catgut for cesarean sections. So James got shot down very, very quickly. And I know he was not supposed to be gleeful of one's brother, but I looked and said, you shouldn't have tried it here. You should not have tried it here. They're far too smart in Boston. But I can remember, I mean, I would have called it a tram, because I remember going across, it's not a tram, but we went across the Charles River. It was so cold.
Oh, the tea.
Yeah. We went across the river because Mum needed to get Dad's credit card because it was so cold and there was ice on the river. And I remember staring out the window and thinking, I didn't realise the rivers froze. I didn't realise the rivers froze. It was so cold and we had no warm clothes, coming straight from Colorado straight into Boston. But yeah, they were good years. Boston was great. I loved Boston. Colorado, perhaps not, but nice scenery, slightly dense people.
The talk
great.
of the camels made me think of what do you call it, like a variation of the old man, like, oh, damn kids, God, it's so lucky with their camels these days. We had to walk to school when I was little. We had to go up pyramid both ways.
We didn't have no school camel.
And my brother who could bullshit with the best of them, and he's going up and up the scale, and I'm looking at these kids and
they're not
twigging. No, they're not twigging. And I'm thinking,
like, really,
they're going to twig. They're going to realize that, you know, we had roads and air conditioning and civilization. We went to supermarkets. you know,
Yeah.
not one of them.
It's not that different from here.
It isn't.
Like,
But the only thing I didn't like about Colorado was, and it changed completely in Boston, was they made us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And neither James nor I knew it. Well, we wouldn't. We were English, not American. So we're trying to learn this Pledge of Allegiance with little or no success. And then we went to Boston and we stood up, and the teacher looked at us. Why are you three standing up? There was a Dutch student, so I said, "Well, we're supposed to say the Pledge of Allegiance." No, sit down. You're not American. Sit down. You don't have to say it.
like, wait a minute, is this legally binding?
No, that's weird.
Something like, as I said, that the difference in kind of the levels was astounding now I think back. But at the time, I was so grateful I didn't have to stand up for something I could barely remember and didn't quite understand and couldn't understand why I was supposed to say it. And I mean, it was bad enough trying to learn how to spell colour and somber and tender and all the rest of it differently.
Drop all those U's. Get those U's out of there.
Yeah, and flavour.
Yeah.
Never work out. Yeah. All these words I had to learn to respell. That was hard enough.
Yeah.
And for someone who's a writer, I'll shut up.
And realize with an S instead of a Z.
Yes.
and our pronunciation of aluminum.
Aluminum, yeah.
Okay, Isaiah, your hands up. Go for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to just say I'm glad everyone has kept up with my my early '80s shuttle cosplay, and it's all complete.
Yeah.
That was
nice.
Steve, what did you?
I saw you were posting pictures of it on Facebook. It looks fantastic. I mean, it looks really authentic.
Thanks. I did. I made much of it from scratch. I did buy a few things.
Mm-hmm.
I made much of it from scratch, honestly. So.
Well, yeah, I think you were telling us last time how you were about making the helmet. I mean, it's fantastic.
Does anyone want to see it? See the helmet?
Yeah, drop a link in
Sure,
chat.
why not?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll put it on.
Go get it. Yeah, that's
the thing about that.
Whoa!
Wait, that's Isaiah. Speak.
Oh,
I got him. There.
Yeah,
There you go.
Oh,
Yay!
nice.
So this is like an old '80s motorcycle helmet that I decided to retrofit and add like a visor and add the little stripes and things. And I'm gonna see if I can put it on actually. And then I made the air hose for it.
Nice. And I was still half expecting it to go shook.
Yeah, right.
Have you considered joining an electronic music duo?
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, he's not
Yeah,
French.
Daft Punk is
Become
hiring.
You could be a DJ.
So
that is really cool. Yes,
I remember. The microphones were what impressed me when you showed it to us last time. The attention to detail is incredible.
These were actually old bottle, so like the bottle caps you get on like a soap, like a dish soap dispenser.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
These were that's what these are. I just painted it and like added the little like slits for the sound to go through with like a Sharpie. And that's what these are.
It's fantastic.
So
That's cool.
Just want to just show you that.
Yeah, it's just fantastic.
That's some nice work there, Isaiah.
Thanks. And then I made like the end pieces here, like out of like old like axial cables or something. Like the connectors, you know, excuse me, at the end of like a cable cord or something.
Yeah.
Use that for like the air hose connector or something. So
Nice.
Really cool.
So hopefully I win
Really
the cosplay convention. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's some other 1980s NASA nerds who will vote for you because I mean I think it looks fantastic.
I would.
Yeah, Nick, your hands up.
I've forgotten of what I wanted to talk about.
Well, if you remember.
No, listen, this is incredibly stressful. There were several points where I had, responses prepared for like this topic and this topic and why religious people think the way they do and so on. But I don't have the energy for most of it now just because I've been like.
Fan club.
I have to to say, my only interest in NASA is that I definitely believe in the moon landings. And I think it's about the only time I ever saw my dad get really angry, much like Aldrin, was when some little idiot, we went to some party in Boston, and I don't know why in Boston, but this chap sauntered up to my dad, who I suspect had been involved in something to do with that in Colorado, though he never said. And he sort of walked up to my dad and didn't introduce it, said, well, we all know that the moon landings were fake. Now, my dad never really got angry. You know, you could always tell when he got angry. His lips used to go thin. And he picked this young man up by his kind of lapels, shook him like a terrier, flung him across the room, and said, get out and don't speak to me ever again, and walked away. And at the time, I thought, well, you know, that's a bit over the top. And it wasn't until years later I realized that he'd probably worked on NASA. He'd probably helped, you know, developing what the weather conditions were like for the rockets to launch. He'd got the transcripts of all the missions. So for somebody to turn around and say, oh no, it was all faked, was a bit like sort of somebody basically saying everything you did was a waste of time.
Yeah. Exactly. He can count himself lucky that the guy didn't go all Buzz Aldrin on it.
Yeah, exactly.
My thought exactly.
Said,
he only got a good shaking.
It was the middle of a party, so we obviously thought with me and my mum there. He probably thought, I'm not going to hit him. It would look good in the middle of all my distinguished colleagues. But I do remember thinking that's a really odd thing to do, because he didn't hit him. He just picked him up and shook him. I swear I heard teeth rattle. And then he threw.
Oh, man.
Here's one other thing. One other thing as regards that. I believe at least 3 of the Apollo missions, they planted laser reflectors not very far from the site.
Yeah.
If you aim a laser, generally speaking, on some particular surface of the moon, you're not going to get a whole lot of reflection. You aim it at those sites, you're going to get a reflection up the yin-yang.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, if that isn't at least a reasonable demonstration that somebody's been there who wasn't there before, I don't know what is.
Also, the Soviets were tracking the missions anyway. Don't you think they would have known?
Yeah, that to me is one of the best. Like, if you believe that it's possible, like the TV transmissions and the video was faked, like, okay, fine. Why did the Soviets let us get away with it? Like in the heat of the Cold War and the space race, and it's like if the United States faked the moon landings, why did the USSR just keep their mouth shut about it and let us claim credit and let us get away with it? It makes no sense.
And there's a powerful human angle here. I mean, Aldrin knew the astronauts that were, or most of them, were on Apollo 1, for example. Right?
Oh, yes. Very much.
So we're not talking
They
simply...
all knew each other. I mean, that was a tight group of people.
We're not simply talking about...
I was so...
talking about the fact that
I was so incensed at 13 when it's all right. I was so incensed at 13. I think I've told Steve this.
Yeah.
When the girls at my school, I went to an all Catholic girls' school, very weird, and they said, "Oh, the moon landings were fake." So I wrote this long letter to Colonel Aldrin saying, "I've been told your moon landings were fake. I don't believe it's so because my father worked such and such and such. I believe he worked." You know, the weather conditions for the rocket launches. And he wrote this lovely letter back saying, no, we did land on the moon. I celebrated mass on the moon. I can assure you that we landed on the moon. It is not a fake. I don't care what your friends say. You have to trust in yourself and your father. So I take this letter to my friends, all full of joy. You know, he's written back. It took him 3 months, but he's written back. And they didn't care. They'd forgotten all about it. I could have throttled them.
They didn't give a shit. Yeah.
Cara, there's this old saying that I got on a 3x6 card a long time ago, and it has stuck with me for 60 plus years. You cannot debate a person who will not handicap themselves with a knowledge of the facts.
Yeah.
Is that the same saying that give someone a rope long enough they'll hang themselves?
Yeah, or don't play chess with a chicken, or
don't play chess with a pigeon.
Don't play chess with a pigeon. All right, I want to get to Nick. Nick's hands up, and then we'll get to Julian. So Nick, go for it.
Sorry, no, I'm just exhausted.
I'm sorry, Nick. I'm sorry.
Nick, you're a basket case.
We love you.
Look, I have sensory overload. I'm autistic and all that. Look, I do have something else to talk about, but it is completely unrelated to anything so far. Okay.
So what?
Go ahead. Lay it out. Go for it.
Ahead.
Go for it.
All right. It's something stupid. So 15 years ago, there was a canceled movie called The Adventures of Thomas. And for all these years, my friends and I just called it the World War II movie because that's all we knew about it. That it was set during World War II, and it was about a father and son who survived the Blitz, and they had some connection to Thomas. So it sounded like it was going to be just a grounded period piece that was set in our real world. It just happened to have a few talking trains in it. And that's perfect because it's exactly what the books were like. It was 99% our normal, boring real world. And the fact that the engines had faces and voices was just never commented on. It wasn't treated as weird. It was never explained. And that was the charm of it because it made it really easy as a child to imagine actually getting on a plane and flying over to Britain, you know, with family and getting to meet Thomas and Gordon Sculloy and all the others. And, well, now it turns out the movie wasn't going to be anything like that. A bunch of information was released, some behind-the-scenes stuff, and Shane Acker's vision would have seen Thomas and friends hail from another universe. A whole train dimension where there are no humans, only trains, with train cities and train wars, steam engines fighting diesel engines. Diesels weren't even around at the time. Like, where the hell they come from? And I'm just so happy this movie was never made because it sounds like it would have been garbage.
They isekai Thomas.
But this is the mistake that too many writers and creatives keep making. They think you have to explain why the engines are alive. How can they have faces and voices? But you're not supposed to explain it. You're not even supposed to rationalize it because the people in that world don't. Because it's not weird. It doesn't matter. We don't need to know how it works.
You might as well try to rationalize why Decepticons and Autobots, you know, came out of when
that was also my thought. Train.
That's what I thought too. But that's another thing about this.
The Reverend Aldrin.
They weren't even going to have the norm. They weren't even going to have like the normal rubbery faces. They would have had a bunch of moving metal plates and glowing eyes, just like a transformer. See why I'm happy this was never made.
Thomas the Tank Engine, directed by Michael Bay.
Oh my God! With like over-designed trains.
Reverend Aldrin. The Reverend Aldrin.
I would totally be down for a
Thomas the Tank
The neck is speaking.
Sorry. I just my closing statement about that. All they had to do was make a grounded character study with World War II as a backdrop. That's all they had to do. And they won't do it for some reason.
Yeah, but the Reverend Aldrin, who wrote the Thomas the Tank Engine books, and there are, I think, last count, maybe about 30 or 40 of them, 40 of the originals, he'll be spinning in his grave because there's stories about trains and the trains interacting with humans and having, I suppose, very human-like adventures, like trains that won't do what they're told, so they get bricked up in tunnels, or trains that have really weird names, like the two that I remember, Scarlowy and Renus.
They're meant to sound like Celtic names.
Well, they're Welsh. One means the divided waterfall, and one means the lake by the pool. So yeah, you have to kind of know English, and it's very weird. So yeah.
I'm sorry.
This is all right. It's all right. There are things I still don't know about the States, and I find it amazing that I didn't pick up more when I was there. But I was quite young, and it was just all a great sort of learning curve, less of a kind of, less of a delightful kind of experience. I'll shut up.
Well, Kara, as an American, I like to say, I feel like America, since you are our mother country, America is like the kid that ran away from home, never came back, and is now a drug addict on the street.
Sorry,
America is the kid that ran away, became a great success, and then has been nothing but a huge asshole about it ever since.
Yeah, but there is one thing I do like about the United States that I never realized until years and years later. I love this idea of church and state being separate. That I can go off and worship and draw
enjoy it while it lasts. It might not be around too much longer.
Yes, you know what I mean. I can have this little altar to the banana god of Hefferington if I want, and nobody's going to criticize me for that. Try that in this country, and oh my God, who do you worship? Oh, the banana god of Heffington. No, that's against the church. Well, I don't happen to believe in your church. Oh, but you're wrong.
Yeah.
Churches say
Well,
are firmly linked.
I'm sorry. There is one other point I want to make, just related to the subject. Like, I understand a lot of parents, they have a hard time with this series because they think, oh, but it's so fascist. Look at how the engines are treated. Like, yeah, it's a dystopia. Maybe Audrey didn't intend for it to be that way, but it does work as one. Because like anytime you have a universe like Toy Story where inanimate object talks, but people don't know it because they only do it when you're not looking. This is a world where they do it when you're looking. You can hear them speak, and yet they are still treated like pieces of equipment and not people. They don't have rights. They don't have any sort of protections. They're at the complete mercy of their human handlers. And if the humans decide that it's time for them to be melted down, cut to pieces and killed, there's nothing they can do about it. That's horrifying. And I get that that's really hard for some people to accept and wrap their minds around because it sounds weird as heck. But like, look at how we dehumanize our fellow humans in real life. Look at how we treat animals. People go like, oh, but if they had faces and stuff, surely we wouldn't have the heart to do that to them. Like, have you seen what we do under capitalism?
Yeah.
So,
there's something you brought up, Nick, when you were talking about like what you originally sort of assumed the Lost Thomas movie would be, that it would be everything is normal except for talking trains. It reminded me, and I guess maybe it's what made me make the connection was because it would have been set during World War II, and it instantly made me think of Godzilla -1. And the thing about Godzilla -1 that I love so much is that Godzilla is the only fantastic thing in the movie. Everything else is as down to earth and as realistic as you could possibly make it. Like even like even other sort of mostly straight Godzilla movies where they try to, take it a little more seriously and Godzilla is presented as a threat. Like there's always like a general sci-fi element to it where there's advanced weapons or, I love that there's always like the typical structure of a Godzilla movie where Godzilla is the threat instead of the guy who fights the worst monster. It's always like, oh, the military has come up with this fantastic new weapon, and it's like this completely imaginary made up thing. And in Godzilla -1, there's none of that. Like the technology they use to fight Godzilla is technology that they would have actually had at the time. The only thing that is different is that there's Godzilla running around, and it's so effective. Like I love that so much about it. Really, it allows the emotional parts of the movie to really come home and land, and you can take them seriously because everything else is real except for Godzilla.
Yeah.
All right, Julian, your hand's been up. Go for it.
Okay, I guess a quick thought in response to Nick there is. Jenny Nicholson makes the observation, and I think one of her little videos about Solo, that by kind of broaching the idea of sort of droid liberation movement, they kind of sort of this. She thinks, well, it seems like sort of a mistake because as soon as you sort of take seriously the idea that the droids are actually sentient beings, many of whom don't want to follow human orders. The whole rest of the sort of series, all your favorite characters are basically sort of slavers. That's it's sort of fine when you think, okay, well, they're just sort of equipment and they're funny, but they are programmed to enjoy what they're doing, and it's all fine. As soon as you sort of introduce the idea, well, actually, some of them don't. You go, oh, well, now this is a horrid dystopia, or even the sort of,
yes, that's the point.
What I originally wanted to say was vis-a-vis Steve's sort of point about the moon landing and why didn't the Soviets, call us on it if that wasn't real. I've noticed this is sort of a systematic tendency within all kind of conspiracy theories, is that their sort of internal logic always forces them to metastasize because the conspiracy always needs to keep being more powerful and more all-encompassing to sort of paper over the holes. I mean, the obvious one is flat Earth, where obviously there's a lot of ways in your backyard you can sort of prove for yourself that the Earth is round, but the obvious sort of thing you would say to those people is, well, what about all the pilots and the ship captains and the people who work with GPS? What are the number of people who would have to kind of be in on it?
Right? What's that delightful phrase?
For no benefit? Yeah,
exactly.
What's that delightful phrase?
Like
Three people can keep a secret if two are dead.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and it's this kind of idea that all conspiracies are what I call self-sealing. There has to be there has to be a conspiracy because of X, and you go, well, no, that's not true because this is true. Oh, well, no, it can't be true because he did X. Well, yes, but it wasn't. Oh, you just end up going, yeah, fine, whatever. I mean, I can remember somebody saying to me, and as I said, we were in Colorado at the time, saying Finland doesn't exist. Beg pardon?
What?
Beg pardon?
That's a weird conspiracy.
What a weirdly specific conspiracy.
And I know, I said, but what about Norway and Sweden? Oh, they exist, but Finland was a creation of Finland and Norway to keep the Germans occupied. Okay.
Makes perfect sense if you think about it.
So in other words, we've just invited another. We've invited our first fictional country to NATO.
Exactly.
God,
they're carrying this a bit far, aren't they?
I don't remember what Canadian was talking
it can't
about
be as
that.
bad as the one that we got when they said, where are you originally from? I said, well, we lived in Bahrain, but my dad came from Wales, came from North Wales. No, you can't. No, you can't make up countries. I made up countries. My dad came from North Wales. No, Wales doesn't exist. It does.
It doesn't exist in the ocean all the time.
Yes, and I said, but there's the Prince of Wales, who was Charles at the time. No, he's the Prince of Wales, not the Prince of Wales. Wales with Wales.
They thought he. Yes, they thought he was Aquaman.
He's the Prince of all the whales.
But he doesn't look a bit like Jason Momoa.
And my brother, as I said, my brother could be quite a right little shit at times. He said, so what do you think he does? Goes out into the ocean and the whales all come round and surround his boat and he sings
I love
to
the
them.
theory. I love it so much.
It's a great idea.
And this girl called Giannine, and I said, yeah, that's exactly what he does. He goes off the coast of England in a boat, and all the whales come out. That's why he's called the Prince of Wales.
Oh my God!
And I stood there, and you know how
true.
You know how all these words want to come out of your mouth. Things like, "Are you that dumb? How can you be so bloody stupid? Are you nuts?" And you can't get any of them out because they're all kind of crowding into your mouth.
It was really
stand there and sputter.
It was really beautiful before Charles was crowned king, you know, when he took Prince William out on the boat and introduced him to the whales and said, you know, these are your people now, my son. I have to
one of these days, all of these waters will be yours.
I have to step up. I have to. I am the ruler of all of this. I am the ruler of all of this now.
Stood there.
It explains the orcas.
Years old.
Yes.
And
it explains the orcas.
I could not think of anything to say because all these words like, are you bloody stupid? You're wrong. You're nuts. You're crazy. And all I could do was stand there and splutter because I just could not get the words out of my mouth to tell her how unutterably thick she was.
I mean, I'm gonna think of that from now on whenever I hear the Prince of Wales.
Well, my mom has met someone who says that she's from Michigan. Oh, where on Michigan? It's like, oh, along the border of Wisconsin. Oh, Michigan does not border Wisconsin.
It's like, do you need to see a map?
Even if you ignore the Upper Peninsula, there's a lake there, but it's still right next to it.
Yeah, it's like, that's why I say it's not, a lot of this stuff, I've gotten to the point in my life where it's like, look, I'm not going to argue with you about this. If you want to go through your life being this fucking dense, that's, you know what, go for it. It's not my job to fix you. I mean,
I like what my brother said to my mom. You should have bet that person. You should have bet that person $5. $5.
Make some money.
Oh my God.
It took me almost 15 years to kind of learn to kind of grit my teeth and go, fine, stay fucking thick.
I want to get to Isaiah, who has his hand up, but I want to acknowledge something from the live chat. One of the viewers, Sean O'Sullivan. This is too good not to bring up. Rule Britannia rules the whales. That is just absolutely exquisite.
Beyond that.
Yep.
That is just absolutely exquisite. So Isaiah, your head's up.
Okay, well, I just want to ask Kara, have you ever been to any because I've always wanted to go to the Titanic Museum in Belfast, and the HMS Belfast in the Thames.
Yeah.
Have you ever like been to any of your like?
Yeah, I did. It's quite moving. They've got quite a lot of stuff. Unfortunately, the day I went, and it was really weird. We actually got in, and we couldn't get up to the upper level unless we were going to the cafe. So my dad said, right, well, we're going to go and buy a cup of tea and a scone. And up on the upper levels, they've got sort of old letters. They can't really get a lot from the wreck because it's considered a grave. But they have a lot of the china that was made for the ship, but that wasn't actually put on. So you can see a lot of the exhibits. You can see a lot of the information about the people that were rescued. You can see a lot of the information about all the, if you like, all the mistakes that were made.
I'm getting.
And there's one really interesting theory that had the Titanic not tried to avoid the iceberg but actually slammed into it, she would have survived with minimal damage to the bow.
Right. Well, like I'm very fascinated with all the very like the old ocean liners like Cunard.
Yeah.
So like I've always wanted.
Yeah, Isaiah, did you know she had 4 funnels but only 3 worked?
Yeah,
because they felt that 4 funnels made it look more
beautiful,
dignified.
And it was also like venting the gases from the galley.
Yeah.
So
there was also okay, here's another thing. So the way it was docked before it set off on its voyage, it was supposed to be flipped around, but there was a fire on that side of the ship that made it even more damaged and probably contributed to the sinking. So they turned it around so that the bad side would be facing away from the port, so the passengers wouldn't see it getting on the boat.
Yeah.
Everything's fine.
That's fantastic.
Get
on the boat.
We're
Everything's fine. No refunds. No refunds. Get on the boat.
I suspect it's an urban legend, but there's also the story that the ship's cat and her kittens sneaked off the boat, sneaked her and her kittens off the boat, off the ship the night before she sailed.
No, she's like, get the fuck off this boat.
Yeah,
we're not going.
And
I got a bad feeling about this.
Yeah, and the man who's in charge of her care, a stoker called Joseph Mulholland, I think, saw what she was doing and thought, no, something's off here. I'm getting off with her.
Wow.
And he deserted. But and people say, well, no, that wouldn't have happened. But I remember one vicar who in London, one of the big churches, she said, our cat took her kittens down to the cellar. And he said, I thought this was a bit odd. So I brought her kittens back up and she took them back down to the cellar. And I thought, something's off with this. So he said, the next night I went down to the cellar and he said the church was destroyed that night. And had I not followed her down to the cellar, I wouldn't be here.
Wow.
So, yeah. Now the second one is a true story because I researched it, but I don't know about the first.
It's a good story. But of course, there's also the survivor's bias there because all the people, who ignored their cat's advice and were completely fine. We don't hear those stories.
Yeah, there is.
Lauren, your hand's up.
Yeah, I wanted to just share a couple of things that have been going on with me. And one of the reasons why I haven't been as regular around here as I've been recently. And part of it, as some of you know, is because I am now what is known in Cleveland, Ohio, as a redcoat. And my wife and I volunteer as redcoats for Playhouse Square. And we've had a chance to see some really great shows. And we've also seen some clunkers. But I'll tell you what, the one that surprised me, I don't know whether any of you have heard about it or not, but they actually took Back to the Future and turned it into a musical.
That's still showing in
That's fun.
It is still showing here at the State Theater. And I'm sort of going, okay, yeah, they're going to take a DeLorean and get it up to 88 miles an hour on the State Theater. They did it.
I think
they did it with visuals and with stage effects. The stagecraft in that play, particularly having to do with the DeLorean itself, is brilliant. Never mind the fact that the cast brought energy to that show that was just epic. The guy the one standout in the whole thing that I thought was brilliant, far above and beyond what Marty McFly brought to it, was his father, George. The guy who plays George McFly makes an art of being, just completely inept and, just a wimp. And he does it brilliantly. And then, of course, at the end of the play, he turns around and becomes this, utter, totally owns himself, totally gets it. Now, Biff, and all that.
Yeah.
We can pick it up.
And that by itself was terrific. Now, the other thing I wanted to bring up was the reason why I missed last month's Hangout was because I was in Indianapolis. More specifically, I was at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Oh, I've heard of this.
I did wonder if
there
you'd
was a
done
motor
that.
race of some kind.
I was, there's this teeny kind of little motor race called the Indianapolis 500.
Yeah.
You don't understand what is going on with the Indianapolis 500 until you have been there. The attendance, fasten your seatbelt, and no, I'm not kidding, was 350,000 people.
That's so many.
I mean, the downside of Indy is the fact that there is no place you can sit in that place to see the entire race. We were sitting on the front straight, and my cat has just disturbed things here, so I've got to straighten that out. There we go. We were sitting on the front straight, so we got to see the start of the race and the end of the race. The one thing I didn't see, which I would have killed to see, was that incredible pass that Joseph Newgarden made in, entering turn 3, where he took Pato O'Ward and basically won the race with that pass. And I mean, I saw that afterwards on YouTube, of course, and the playbacks and all that. But there's an energy there and just a sense that you cannot get over. The real kicker, though, is getting out of there. Getting in there was difficult enough as it was. It took us longer to get out than it took to get in. But again, I wanted to emphasize 350,000 people exiting the same venue at the same time.
Oh, God.
Fun and games.
Yeah.
What do you call it? I intentionally bring video games and stuff to play in the car.
I'm gonna have to give. I need something to do.
Just sit in the car for an hour because it takes at least that long for traffic around there to get reasonable.
It took us, I think it took us 90 minutes to drive the 20 miles back, and most of that was exiting the lot. And at that, we had to go by way of Joe's Barn because they were redirecting stuff all over the place. Again, 350,000 people. You don't have any sense of that until you're in the middle of it.
Yeah, but it reminds me of the time, and we were on a plane, just a normal 747. And the minute the plane stops, this is before she's taxied to the air bridge, everyone stands up. And I swear the stewardess had finally had enough of this group of nutters,
idiots.
for want of a better idiot. Nutters will do. And she just snarled. And I swear she could have been an opera singer. She snarled, "Will you fuckwits sit down? We haven't got there yet. Sit the hell down and we'll tell you when you can go."
Jesus.
I've flown 47s a number of times, and mostly it's they're pretty good, but you get the wieners every so often.
I've always wanted to fly on a 747.
Yeah.
Always wanted to fly.
I'm convinced I have a barcode across my head that says, I attract idiots every bloody time.
You just notice them more often.
Yeah.
I've never been.
When I used to take the bus, when I wasn't working from home, I would get the nutcase that would sit next to me and go, "Are the voices in my head bothering you?"
They are now.
They weren't till just now.
Are we there yet?
I would be at the back of the plane, or just calmly sitting doing nothing, and suddenly from the seat beside me, this woman would take out a gas stove and a bowl full of some kind of orange goo and attempt to light it in the middle of the plane while we're at 35,000 feet.
Oh, swell.
Jesus Christ.
They sell those idiot attracting forehead signs that usually comes on a red hat.
This is why I always have. This is why I always have earbuds in when I'm on the bus, even if I'm not watching something on my phone or something like that.
Right. Just I don't want to deal with this.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I know Rosa Parks fought for blacks to sit anywhere on the bus, but I sit at the back of the bus just to avoid the bullshit. So I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, but now you have the choice. That's the important thing.
Right.
I got to say, I've never been in a crowd of 350,000 people or anywhere close, but the traffic when the event is over is the main reason why I have never sat through all 9 innings of a Baltimore Orioles game.
Yeah.
I haven't been to Camden Yards for a while, but I've been to a few games at Camden Yards over the years. And way back, me and my dad and mom went to a couple of games at Memorial Stadium in Baltimore before they had Camden Yards. And it's always like, okay, it's like, top of the 8th. Let's go. We can listen to the end of it on the radio because
Steve, it's interesting because I used to go to a lot of Cubs games, and I mean, the parking around Wrigley Field is not the best, but the neat thing about Wrigley Field is what's right next door, the L. And we used to just, get right on there at Addison, go down, go down to Howard, change trains at Howard, and go all the way out to, I forgot where it terminated, but we drive to the end of the L, pick it up, and it was easy on, easy off, and no problem.
Oh yeah,
if you wonderful. Can use... I'm amazed that more stadia don't do that.
If you can use public transportation, that makes a huge difference. We went to this is like 25 years ago, but I went to a wrestling show in DC at the MCI Center, which I'm not sure is even there anymore.
It's now Capital One Arena.
Capital, okay, it's the same thing. They just changed it. Just like the Baltimore Arena is now the First Mariner Arena or something. It's the same place, but they, but like, and we did what I usually do when I visit the DC area, which is just park at the nearest metro station to the furthest metro station out, like Shady Grove or something, and then just take the metro in the rest of the way. And it's there's a crowd when everybody's leaving the building, but it's fairly orderly. And then you get on your train and off you go, and you don't have to worry about sitting in traffic for an hour while everybody putters along and takes turns getting the hell out of there. So public transportation makes a huge difference for something like that.
Yep.
It's the one thing I'm actually quite glad of living in the UK, that our public transportation, when I do get on, even though I have to use my wheelchair, it's pretty good, and the drivers are pretty good on our route. I've only had a couple of occasions where I've actually had them refuse to put the flap down so I can wheel myself on.
Yeah.
And that's annoying and a little bit frustrating. And as I said, I've really only lost my temper a couple of times with people, and that was one with someone who I asked them the directions somewhere in Wolverhampton. I didn't know it very well then, and they replied to my husband, and I kind of grabbed them by their bits. And,
You're talking to me.
Yeah, I'm here. He's pushing me. I'm the one asking. And the second one was somebody I was online with, and I was in my wheelchair. And we were chatting different meeting, and they said, "Oh, you're disabled. Are you sure you should be writing?"
What?
Beg pardon?
What?
Beg pardon?
How does that even follow?
I've written 3 books. What do you mean should I be writing?
What?
I wish the audience could see my face right now, because that's the look I would give.
It doesn't even make logical sense, like in any way. Like what? What are you talking about?
Yeah. Are you sure you should be writing? You're disabled. It's one of those things you sit and you go, do I tell them to go do something else?
Wow, that went to you, Jen, quite fast.
What are you worried is going to happen? Like, What is even the concern here?
It's almost as if you're suddenly going to go.
Yeah, like, I shouldn't have done all that writing. Now it's even worse. Like, what?
Well, anyway,
all right, sorry. Geek, go ahead.
We're at the top of the hour, so we'll finish up with the hands raised and stuff like that. And we might actually end relatively close to on time this time.
On time-ish, yeah.
Yes, on time-ish. But I'm using my platform. Please give money to Joanna Roberts. She is in the hole by a negative $200 or a negative $182, and she does not have food. She does not have food for herself or for her trans son. And so if you have any extra money or willing to charge up your credit cards like I do, there are the links to give to Joanna Roberts, please. Because I don't know what the fuck to do. I'm tapped out, and it's this is why I charge up my credit cards as I do and work 60 hours or more a week in order to support them, because someone has to. But also I got more friends that are disabled and thus need to beg on in order to live. Phoenix is still the same old usual, no income whatsoever, not even the TDAP, and so they're begging as well to just try to pay their bills, and they have a toothache that needs a root canal, and they don't know how they can get the $150 for the copay, because yes, they have Medicare and Medicaid and something like that, or one of those two, but yet still have to pay copay because America as well too. And but yeah, also Joy, another friend that I have that needs money. Joy Fine Lane Deer always needs money because they were denied SSI and they're disabled, and so yeah, and I'm done. Charity links that page. We'll really also mention that at the end of the show. Isaiah,
please go for it, Isaiah.
I was saying, we were talking about baseball a couple minutes ago. I wanted to say that I actually played t-ball when I was younger.
Good for you. I never played organized sports of any kind. So.
I actually did play baseball.
I was an all-American kid. I just wasn't white.
So you were an all-American kid.
I had a little slugger, little helmet. The
I had a little slugger.
Yep. Data Portal, you had your hand up too. Do you want to say something?
I just wanted to make a quick interjection for the week.
Go for it.
Steve, in my last, not my last video, but my last Andromeda video that came up this week, I actually gave a shout out to your Is Captain Kirk a Womanizer video.
Oh boy.
And the reason I wanted to tell you is because you'll take joy in knowing that I used it in order to punch Kevin Sorbo in the face. So.
Oh boy. That
there
does
are a few
give me
people
joy.
who need to be punched in the face like Kevin Sorbo needs to be punched.
I have I have an animated GIF that I made from an episode of the Larry Sanders Show that I take great joy in posting on Twitter anytime there's any opportunity to dunk on Kevin Sorbo. It's from an episode where I forget. I think it was Larry was trying to schedule a dinner with Ellen DeGeneres. And Ellen DeGeneres wanted to have dinner with him, and at first he was afraid he wouldn't be able to because he had to have dinner with Kevin Sorbo, and then he decides at the last second that he's going to have dinner with Ellen DeGeneres anyway. And there's the beat of Larry Sanders kind of just waving his hand and going, "Hercules can fuck himself." And every time Kevin Sorbo does anything on Twitter, I'm like, oh, I can use my GIF. Yeah. Hercules can fuck himself.
Couldn't we just hit him in the face with a wet fish?
We can do that too if we want to.
Proud English tradition. I support it completely.
So, so Steve, just last week today as well too. A quick plug for my channel as well too. But I will put the rest of the plugs in the live chat. But Steve, what do we have coming up later this week on the channel?
Oh boy. Well, tomorrow there's a video that I can't wait for people to see that I actually did in collaboration with Dana, who was here with us before we actually went live. Dana provides a character voice in the video that goes up tomorrow. I don't want to spoil too much about it, but the title of the video is "So You've Realized Maryland is a Flag Cult." because we really love our state flag here in Maryland. We love our state flag.
That's a beautiful. I like that symbol, Steve.
It's a beautiful flag. It's a beautiful flag.
It has a boob on it.
I mean, the state flag always sucks.
It's a beautiful flag. And so I made a video, a little funny skit about the Maryland flag and whether or not Marylanders are whether maybe it's not actually a state, maybe it's just a cult to worship the flag. But I'm very pleased with that video. It goes out tomorrow. And then Wednesday is, I'm making it, I'm still working on it now, but it'll be done and ready for Wednesday. My retrospective video on the entire series of Star Trek Discovery. And then also Wednesday is me and Dana's regular live stream, Trek Reluctantly, where we watch, this week we're watching an episode of Deep Space Nine. We're watching The Darkness and the Light, really cheerful episode of Deep Space Nine.
No, but I meant to tell you, Steve, just before we all stop. My mum would have adored you and your reviews of Deep Space Nine.
Oh,
she was born 37. I mean, she's passed away now, but she's born 37, and she and her mother escaped from Russia. That's how I got my name, Kara.
Wow. Oh, okay.
When she was about 4 or 5. So she says she remembers she and her older brother being taken to this port. She said somehow they got up somewhere, thinks it was Archangel, and they were put in this office. And then suddenly there was some confusion about them getting on the ship. So she says her mother took the port official away somewhere and came back after about half an hour. Now, and suddenly they could get on the ship. Now, I think, but my mum only alluded to it once or twice, I think my grandmother slept with him to get her and her elder brother on the ship. So when I would say, but Kira's not very nice, Cisco betrays his, my mum said, you have no concept of what people have had to do in wars.
Oh, yeah.
You have no concept of what a war will do. And because I know that my grandmother, I don't know what happened to her first husband, because my mum was the daughter of her first husband, as was her elder brother. She married again when she got to this country. So hence my mum being not sort of, I mean, I can still speak a bit of Russian because she taught me a bit of it, but hence my name, Kara, from the Kara Sea.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a Star Trek character. It's kind of, so I kind of have a bit of Anglo-Russian heritage. So I suspect, although she never ever said, and my grandmother was very, very cagey about what she'd done when she got to this country, I suspect she had to do some very, not so much unconventional, but what we would consider very sluttish things to get my grandmother and her brother to England. And my mum rarely talked about it. As my grandmother rarely talked about it. And I'm not sure I blame them. So when I used to say things like, but Cisco does these things, like in The Pale Moonlight, Kira Between the Darkness and the Light, Odo, when he has that flashback of killing his people. And I say, but you can't say these people are heroes. They're not. They've not done heroic things. And my mum said, during a war, people have to do things that actually go against everything that, society says this, you shouldn't have to do. She said my grandmother should not have had to sleep with a port official to get me and my brother on a ship. But she
maybe
did,
not, but she stepped up because she gave a damn about you and your brother.
She did what was necessary.
That by itself is worthy of, no small notice.
Yeah.
No.
Mm-hmm. Well, those are some of my favorite stories, not just Star Trek or sci-fi story, but stories about fundamentally good people who are forced by extreme circumstances to do things that they would never otherwise do, but they have to do because it's that or the end, like that's what they have to do to survive. As
I said, it took me years to realize why my mum loved DS9 so much, why she sort of realized that the war changes people fundamentally. From that you can't sort of go, oh yes, we're all going to be nice now and pure white and wonderful and always do the right thing, because sometimes doing this beautiful right thing is not going to get the job done. Is not going to save you. Anyway,
those are the those are the moments where when I'm watching Deep Space Nine, where I even now, like after having been a Star Trek fan my whole life, like I'll still sometimes be watching a really good episode of Deep Space Nine and be like, man, this is like really good. Like not just good for Star Trek. This is really good.
but so on speaking of Star Trek,
Yes.
this Wednesday is Trek Reluctantly,
Yes,
where
indeed.
it's an episode of Deep Space Nine. Anything else coming up on the C.H.F channel? Like more Star Trek stuff, maybe?
Well, Thursday another episode review. What's the episode review I'm doing on Thursday? Oh, Drone. It's all it's for the rest of the Borg episodes batch. It's all Voyager from here on out. So wish me luck.
Yeah,
I do want to do a little bit shout out on the podcast that you've been doing, especially the movie podcast. I was going over the old ones. I love the Flash Gordon one, and I certainly love the Last Starfighter and Top Gun were my three favorites.
Oh yeah,
so you guys want to check that out, please.
And we're later this afternoon, we're recording the next one, and we're doing Enemy Mine. Which nice. I just rewatched last night, and
that's
man,
a good one.
What a great
that
movie.
is an
What a great
astonishing movie.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Enemy Mine. So that'll be the next episode of Late Seating we're recording. And of course we're also recording the new episode of the Ensign's Log, the first episode of season 7. So
to go back and watch and listen to the older ones so I can be in the groove, you know.
I have like 2 months of that podcast I have to catch up on because I am
not caught up.
I got into the backlog of Behind the Bastards, and there is so much
there's a lot.
The Bastards.
There's a lot, yeah. Well,
there's a lot of bastards in the world.
They don't they do 2 of those a week?
At least 2 a week, yes.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah. So also, how can, if people want to join in this kind of hangout and like participate as well too, how can they do that, Steve?
What a strangely apt question to ask. This is something that we do every month. It's myself and everybody on the show with me here are patrons or channel members, and if you would like to participate in this, perhaps at some point, we do it at the last Sunday of every month, and you can become a Patreon patron of the channel by going to patreon.com/Steve Shives, or you can become a channel member by clicking the join button below the video on the YouTube page. And this is something that's open to all patrons and all members of any support level, whether it's $1 a month or more. That also allows you to ask me questions ahead of time for my Ask Away live streams that I do twice a month.
And the next one's coming up this Friday, in fact.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So the call for questions will go out tomorrow.
Yes, and one of my asks, if I can say one thing before we leave.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so for this Ask Away, I'm going to get Steve's opinion on a late seating podcast fanfic that I did in my head. So while I work at the job, I do late seating fanfics about movies that hasn't reviewed yet. And so for this one, I decided to do a late seating review of one of my personal favorite movies, the 1986 movie Space Camp.
God! Oh God!
I would love to do Space Camp. I would love to do Space Camp as a real episode.
It's so weird.
I wish I wasn't space.
Such a weird film.
So patreon.com/Steve Shives,
that's right.
And click on the join button in the description below. Also, in the description below is like a charitylinks.page.
Charitylinks.page, yes indeed.
As well as the links to the many different people in Joanna Phoenix and join Final Name Deer. And I think that's it.
It doesn't really matter very much, but as you're all here, it's really nice to be here, and you're all really nice. And you're a hell of a lot better than my poetry group.
Carol, we're glad to have
you. No complaining about gay penguins in this group.
Hey, we all.
Gay kind of exists. Homosexual relations exist right across the border. Yeah. She was so venomous and vitriolic, and as I said, it took me 15 years to actually bite my lip and not go, listen, you miserable piece of
dog meat. Dog meat works
fun homosexual animal fact. Giraffes are so inclined to same-sex relations that pretty much the only time they will engage in heterosexual sex is to procreate.
Yeah. It's
good for
why
giraffes.
it's why at a lot of zoos, when the male and female giraffes mate and the younger male giraffe is growing up, they often have to remove the young male away to a different zoo, because otherwise the older male will try and fuck him.
Wow. So they're not only gay, they're like super horny.
Yeah.
They're not even that horny with the opposite sex. They're super gay horny.
Wow.
Well, I didn't know
the
about
majesty of nature. The majesty of nature.
The majesty of nature. The fact that it kind of occurs right. Oh, like I said, I was 28 when I went back to university after a lot of kind of trips and falls.
Kara, we're trying to end the show.
Sorry, like... I could rattle forever. I could rattle forever.
Giraffes are super gay and it's awesome. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye. Bye.